thank you very much for still being here, right, after the second panel of the afternoon about institutional staking and staking adoptions for institutions. A lot of friends on the panel, starting with Charlie, CEO of Woorton, and also co-founder of Paris Blockchain Week. So please give a round of applause because that's also because of him that we are here. Then Alexandre was head of sales France and Middle East at Fireblocks. Vincent, yeah. But then you'll have to do it for everyone. So. Vincent was head of financial products at Ledger Enterprise. Joaquin was managing director LATAM and EMEA for Bitgo. And last but not least, Johann was lead product at MetaMask Institutional. Amazing. So we've heard on the previous panel that staking is kind of the internet bond of crypto. Maybe starting with you, Alexandre, how do you see staking for your clients? And can you maybe give a brief explanation of it?
Yeah, sure, of course. So when you think about crypto reward, you've got multiple ways to generate a crypto reward. You've got proof of work, so crypto mining, proof of stake, which is the topic today, and then you can basically lend cryptos through centralized platforms or decentralized liquidity pools via smart contracts. Now, staking, you basically lock your assets and you participate in the validation process of blocks in the blockchain, and you get a reward for securing the blockchain. So we're seeing quite a huge amount of demand for this type of mechanism because it's a natural way to participate in the blockchain ecosystem, getting a reward for securing the blockchain. So definitely a lot of demand on our side.
Super cool. And I love that definition. Vincent, can you maybe explain what is, compared to maybe normal staking, what is enterprise-grade staking and what institutions, for example, using Ledger Enterprise are waiting when they need an institutional-grade staking offering?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question because on Ledger, everybody knows Ledger for the retail product, the hardware wallet, and Ledger Live. And when 1 year ago I started the journey of building enterprise-grade staking for Ledger Vault, I asked myself what to do. Can I take whatever we've done on the wallets for retail and put it available for enterprise? And actually we saw a completely different set of requirements in B2B. In B2B, for example, you need to be extremely accurate in terms of reporting. So what we've seen in the past is we've seen customers stake, for example, on Polkadot and get removed from the elected set and not understanding why there were no rewards. In B2B, this is not acceptable. People expect to have the yield optimized. They expect to understand what amount of rewards they will get. Of course, they understand some level of variability, but they need a clear explanation post-facts. So one thing where it was very different, it's on reporting. We've also seen a huge demand from guidance on the protocols, guidance on the regulatory aspects. Today, there are still some uncertainty concerning the regulations, and there was a panel on the topic, but they need some help from the staking providers to navigate that ecosystem. Sometimes it's not up to the validator companies to define, but sharing the experience to having that help is very important to them. And last but not least, and it's the DNA of Ledger, is they want security. So when you delegate your assets or you deposit them on the Ethereum 2 contract, for example, it's still a transaction. And when you do a transaction, what you want to make sure is that you do a transaction which is actually going to follow your intent, and you're not doing another transaction disguised as a delegation or staking transactions. And that's where we really focused on the Ledger Enterprise side to make sure that the UX is as clean as possible, that what you see on your device is exactly what you're going to do, to make sure that doing delegation, which is a much more frequent action than doing payment sometimes, doesn't introduce any risk on your assets. So for me, yes, really the compliance, the reporting, and the ease of use and security are really the four main drivers of enterprise staking.
Okay, cool. So it makes sense that we exist then, right? Great. Joaquin, and then I'll have the same question for you, Charlie. Why do you think institutional investors are interested in staking?
That's a very good question. Of course, earning a yield on tokens that they hold, for example, VCs, they just don't want to be exposed to the inflationary aspect of those chains. Generally, a lot of VCs, they own, at least the ones we work with, they own a large portion of those tokens. So hedge against inflation is very interesting. Depending on how the yield and the reward is, of course, you can make a little bit more, right, and really earn a yield besides the inflationary aspect of that specific blockchain. And of course, if you're thinking about investing in any kind of blockchain, and right now there's a big wide number of different blockchains you may be interested in, you're probably going to go for one where you can hedge all those risks, right? That's right now basically it. Probably I think in the future, 2 to 3 years time, we will start to see other reasons, especially with the current legacy financial world we live in right now, especially these last weeks. But yeah, I guess currently that's the state of the art right now.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. And Charlie, do you have anything to add as why institutional investors are starting to be interested in staking?
Yeah, so I think my friends around here covered the topic quite well. But the way I see staking with our clients and our counterparty is really like as an interest rate product, and that's the way our clients and counterparties see it. And institutions see interest rate products with actually two angles. The reward, the risk, and what kind of liquidity you have, and what kind of liquidity depth you have to have access to it. If you look over the past year, it was a very fun interest rate in the market that was higher than any risk-free interest in the market. So you could lend your money to FTX, you could lend your money to whoever, and you had access to crazy interest rates, and we're like, whoa, that's great. I can lend my USD in a 0% interest rate environment at 5%. Let's do it. Institutions won't do it because that was not replying to their need and requirement in terms of reward and risk. Then the market shifted. Now you can lend your money to the US government. They're going to pay you 4 to 5%, and it's way more than any lending market in the crypto industry. So you're like, I can lend my money to the US government, but if I lend my money to any unregulated digital asset exchange, I'm paid like 5x less. Where's the logic here? Where is the rationale behind it? There is a very simple rationale. It's uncorrelated, it's not the same people, it's not the same demand. The interest rate lending market is very low because there is no demand. And then happens the Darwin selection of interest rates in the crypto industry, meaning like there is only one way to have access to interest rate in a healthy environment, and it's staking. And I think that's how you guys made an amazing job, and of course you win competition, but what I mean is now the only way to get access to interest rates in a safe environment, respecting the requirement of an institution in terms of risk and reward, is staking. So that's why we're seeing, I think, kind of an increase of interest from them, and now they are trying to get access to it, matching all of their requirement and ticking box. But I think we're getting there, and you guys are getting there.
Cheers.
Can you go to this if you want?
Yeah, of course.
A couple of examples.
Yep.
So we have we are B2B only, but we have a lot of customers that are running crypto trading platforms that are offered towards retail investors. And here we see two main use cases. One is staking their own treasury with a view to increase their capital efficiency. And the other one is to offer additional services to their customers. And what they're telling us is that it's one thing to acquire new customers, but it's another to actually make sure that those customers will grow on the platform. And being able to deliver additional products by way of offering staking products, for instance, is definitely one way to achieve that. And this is what we're hearing from customers.
And yeah, that's very interesting to see that you all have like kind of a staking journey for your customers in high demand. And I agree, safest yield, higher yield in the market now that lending is both kind of like low yield compared to interest rate and still kind of risky. Johann, I mean, you have quite a specific product compared to other custodians here because you aggregating different custodians provider, and you see kind of various trend, and kind of the goal of MMI is to push these institutions to access staking, liquid staking, and DeFi. So what's your vision of staking for institutions? What do you see as demands there? And do you have anything to add to what have these gentlemen just said?
I think one of our product principles is the idea of unrivaled access. It's something that's really part and parcel of MetaMask Institutional. And we think about how can we be an unrivaled bridge into Web3. And so if I take that as a fundamental principle, if we think about staking, we really think about it in the exact same way. How can we provide unrivaled access to staking? And if you look across the ecosystem today, I think we see a lot of really interesting trends. Firstly, for institutions, we see them having to look through various terms and conditions, various different staking providers, and a very long sales cycle to look at understanding which staking service provider to select. With custodians, they have to obviously work with these staking providers. And then obviously, off the back of that, there are month-long integrations that need to happen. And we speak with staking providers all the time that have to do a lot of complex integrations to make sure that their products are accessed by institutions. And then lastly, I think Vincent raised some really good points, which is, importantly, we want to build incredible user experiences. We want to make sure there's seamless access to staking. We want to make sure there's institutional reporting. And so within the users, within staking providers, with the custodians, we think there's a very interesting kind of combination between these three individual players that hasn't been solved for. But fundamentally, underlying all of that, I think is about unrivaled access.
Right.
If I can react, one thing very interesting is the complexity. What we see is individually, none of these chains are very complex. You know the conditions at which you can stake and unstake. But when you start to multiply by number of chains, the chains are evolving independently from the staking provider. I mean, they vote, they forks, they evolve. So having to keep track of all this complexity across multiple chains is very complex for the customer today. Especially in the institutional market, sometimes they have this requirement that they want two providers for everything, and if the two providers have a different set of terms and conditions, it's basically doubling the complexity again. And we see that being a real challenge in the institutional staking. The solutions are not commoditized, hopefully, otherwise there wouldn't be such a flourishing market and Kiln wouldn't be there. But at the same time, there is a need for more standardization and for it to be easier to grasp on the financial and the regulatory, and as well sometimes kind of the funding aspects, because sometimes you need to put some part of your money in self-bonds, and this for institutions is very complicated.
If I may,
of course,
comment about this. I think we, in order to discuss these topics, we really need to define what are institutions for us, right? In general, for this group, for this debate. I think all of the panelists are true, and I agree with them if we're talking about pure crypto native companies, either two people, asset manager to whatever size it is. If they are crypto natives probably have the entity in places like the Maltas of the world. Hopefully we don't have anyone from Malta here, but if you're from Malta, I have nothing against Malta. Okay, it's just an example. I think you'll know what I'm trying to say, where regulation, legal constraints, etc., are just, the bar is just not too high. Let's just accept that. Okay, so if we're talking about crypto native entities, yes, it's all about user experience, connecting. I'm sorry, I'm giving you my back. User experience, being able to report fantastically well, because otherwise they need 5 people, finance team and accounting team to conciliate everything. A good governance layer where you can give access to 4 or 5 people in your organization to make everything secure, etc. That's all fantastic. Companies like Fireblocks that and with companies like Kiln and other staking providers, as you said, it's the blue ocean right now, right? So we're all trying to fix that product problem, and I think we're in the great path. If we're talking about meaningful, large, 40-year-old institutions based in places like France, regulated by financial markets, okay? Germany, I don't know, even Switzerland, we have Eve here having these problems right now, right? The questions they're gonna ask is, hey, okay, how do I explain to my regulator what is a reward? How do I explain them where is that reward being produced, okay? Where are the servers? Where are the nodes? We really need to, at least from a bigger perspective, for the ones who don't know it, we have like a software-only platform that, where we have nothing to do about regulation, fiduciary responsibility, etc. And another one which is really fiduciary custody, insured, etc., etc. For that part of the product we have, it is very challenging. You have to speak with dinosaurs, let's face it,
right.
And explain what is at stake in reward, how we can report it, where the nodes are, and a long laundry list of stuff. So it is a challenging moment for fiduciary custody. And I think the large and meaningful institutions are not here yet, because that bridge hasn't been close, at least to a moment where the risk business decision can be made by their boards. And I have to say, this is a discussion and a debate I don't see too much in general in these conferences around the world. We're all crypto native, super advocate about it, but we really need to think about how to breach this, because these big institutions are not going to do it by themselves. They already have a great business to run in parallel. I think they'll take a long time to educate the regulator, and until they don't have the green light, they will not proceed. Plus, it's not only a green light of one regulator. If you're operating in 5, 6, 7 jurisdictions, which is a normal use case here, you have to align your 5 or 6 regulators to tell you the same story, and to tell you that those regulators basically to have a standard regulatory framework, because otherwise you have to build 4 different things at the same time. I'll give you a an example we're having right now. Germany, BaFin, okay? One of the most complicated and stringent financial regulators in the world. They see rewards as a trading brokerage kind of thing. And you just, in order to be able to bridge from a software perspective, the reward incoming, the withdrawals, etc., you need to be a broker. BaFin regulated broker takes you 3 years. And then you come here to France, or you go to Portugal. I'm talking about Europe because I think most of us are embedded in this ecosystem in Europe specifically. They tell you different things. They tell you, oh, no, with the normal custody license is fine. Others tell you, don't worry, just register here and do what you have to do. How can I tell a regulated large financial institution in Switzerland, regulated by FINMA, that they can do this easily with me because they just plug and play APIs and just don't pay attention to what the regulator says? You just can't. And I think, let's face it, the real money, real investment is in those people, right? Apart from, again, large VCs that are super into crypto, but I think all this won't really step up until we figure this out together, of course.
So the regulation standpoint and going out of the gray zone and having a standards maybe worldwide. I hope it happens. I'm sure it will happen a day like that we get out of the gray zone, but like maybe a standards. I'm not sure Baffin will shake the hands with Gary Gensler, but let's see, right? Let's stay optimistic.
It's a journey, I think.
It's a journey, yeah.
It will take time, right? If you think about the banking sector as a whole, which eventually will drive further adoption into the mass markets, they are touching blockchain, doing like tokenization experimentation, but they're not touching crypto per se just yet, apart in certain jurisdictions. When we get there, that will obviously help drive further adoption and help drive the regulation further. I think it's still very, very early stage in the global financial system.
Yeah,
right now.
I'm curious on the panelists, where do we think we are on the adoption cycle?
What's the scale? What, like 0 to 10 or?
Yeah, exactly.
Zero
Whatever
to 10,
measure you
right?
want to think about it.
So the global adoption being everyone using cryptos all the time? Or
Institutional.
institutional?
Yeah.
What do you think? 0 to 10 adoption, crypto asset staking, liquid staking, DeFi.
I say we're at 3 or 4.
Staking specifically.
2, okay.
Or in general.
Very, very low. But for me, institutions and retail is the same questions because, I mean, I used to work for SWIFT, the interbank financial transfer, so really not crypto. And basically, 5 or 6 years ago, you started to have all these neobanks which were starting to do instant payments. And suddenly, you realize that all banks can do instant payments and they can react. So banks, when there's a need, they will adapt and they will build. They will be slow, but it's a big boat and it can move a lot of people to it. So I think that we still need to create more and more demand on the retail side, or it creates itself, I would say, because people lose a bit of faith in the traditional financial system, and then institutionals will follow.
By the way, this is a great point.
This is a 3 or 4? I didn't get it.
I think it was a 2 for you, or
Yeah, 2.
Yeah. I guess I'm in a 1.5 or something, or somewhere there.
Okay.
Your
And
point
you
is
are
absolutely. I'm sorry. It's absolutely perfect timing. I don't know if you guys saw 2 or 3 days ago the ECB and 4 other central banks agreed to settle on USDs 24/7 until mid-April. Wow, that's history. This just happened, and really it's not even being discussed in these environments or in any other environments. This is history. 5 of the largest central banks in the world see a huge risk, let's face it, even though Credit Suisse is not the same as what happened in the US, et cetera, okay. They decided to settle 24/7, first time in the history of humanity, just to serve as a stopper to the potential risk all this USD settlement inefficiency may happen, right? So I agree, banks and central banks are moving quickly, okay? This wouldn't have happened 10 years ago or in the 08 crisis.
I think I'm a 3 or 4. I think that we think about it as sort of this crossing the chasm that's happened over the last 2 years. And we've started with your crypto natives, you've started with your 1,000 true fans, and we've definitely observed over the last years more and more traditional organizations stepping into the space. A lot of it is hype. I was at Paris Blockchain Week in the conference earlier, and like the ideas are super grandiose. It reminds me of the ICO boom. Following the ICO boom, every single organization wants to do a private blockchain, like it's all dead now. But underlying that is real fundamental demand, and I think that's deeply profound. And so I think we have to, the regulation piece is a huge topic. If you have the answers, let us know. Like it's a huge thing. But I think every single panelist here is sort of building an experience, building a product, building a solution to bridge more organizations to the space. And I think that's important.
So maybe as a very good kind of introduction or link to that, can you explain a little bit more what MetaMask Institutional is launching? What like different staking products you're bringing to the space, and how it will benefit to these institutions?
Well, I'll talk about MetaMask, which is live and has been announced. So the MetaMask product announced a staking solution natively within the portfolio dApp. It was launched in January of this year, and it's there to make staking as simple and seamless as possible for the consumer user. It started by using Rocket Pool and Lido, something really simple, and we'll expand that offering to kind of more on-chain solutions over time, looking obviously at liquid staking tokens, etc. That's sort of what the MetaMask team announced a couple months ago. And our side, we're thinking very deeply about some of these areas that I mentioned earlier.
Cool. Charlie as well, about how can you, I mean, as a market maker, as an OTC provider, broker in crypto that we use, we're very happy customers, I have to say, at Kiln.
Thank you.
Can you maybe explain us a little bit more how you can use staking in market making and how you can use staking in your products in general?
Yep. So thank you again for saying you're happy with the service. That's always good to hear.
Do you still have a business card with you? For the audience?
I will wait at the door at the very end. No. So we're live since 2016, started to provide liquidity across market, on exchange, off exchange to counterparties. As of today, I believe we are the most liquid in euro to digital assets pairs. And I have to say I disagree with what I've been hearing since the beginning of the panel, because I don't believe we're waiting for regulation to go. I believe we will build something that creates the demand, and then they will have no choice to regulate it. I prefer to see it this way, because if we're all waiting for the dinosaurs to make a regulation, we are going to wait for a long time. And I've been waiting a long time since 2016 to be now a regulated digital assets provider. And I'm not going to wait this time to be able to offer something that is in a regulated framework that institution can accept about stacking. So I really want to see the other way around, starting from scratch and saying, no, we're not waiting for regulation. We're building something. We're creating the demand. They will go. Bankers are not stupid. If they can make money, believe me, they're going to be there. But then regulation will come. So now coming back to your question, what we're building is really offering a full stack of services around digital assets. And as I said with my first answer, stacking is the most healthy way of doing it. It's like the most sustainable of offering interest rates. So we needed to add this product to our full stack technology, and so we're working on adding, as anyone here is doing, stacking around the full service of product we are offering. Now, as a market maker, it's very interesting. We have money all over the markets to capture volume. This money has a cost. There is a funding cost to it. So when I'm trading ETH on Coinbase, if Coinbase is not trading at all, I'm losing money because there is a cost of funding for my ETH to be sleeping on another book. The best way of tackling this cost is to have access to interest rate at a very fast way and at a very scalable way. So we always need to look at our overall funding cost to be able to offer good pricing to our friend. And one of the good ways to do it is to have access to an automated, scalable infrastructure where you can stack any assets and gain interest rates to it. So as a market maker, you need to optimize your funding cost. One of the ways to do it is to have access to scalable and automated stacking solution. And of course, secure and everything, but we all know that that's the case.
No, but that's a very good point. You say secure, scalable on different all these stakeable assets. Let's say it's infrastructure that you could use, even automation via API, for example. How complex is this to implement in custody solutions such as Fireblocks, for example? And then I'll go to Ledger and Bitgo.
It's a good point. I think it's quite, staking is a complex mechanism. You have different reward mechanism, different data points, different blockchains, different ways to validate the blocks. And the idea of working with a best-in-class staking provider is to offer a seamless experience to our customers. So if you're an institution and you want to stake and you want to build it yourself, it will take you a long time and you will have a lot of work to open those different ways to generate those rewards with the different blockchains. If you go through a provider, and again, the whole idea of Fireblocks here is to enable our customers to pick and choose the building blocks that will define their digital asset offering. Staking is now one of those building blocks, and it is a complex integration from a technology perspective, But the idea of having a provider that can answer the needs of our customers in a seamless plug and play manner within our infrastructure, where assets can be staked directly from the vaults, adds a lot of value for our customers, because then it becomes a seamless and secure experience. And again, with the API automation, you can start scaling again to echo what Charlie was saying.
All right. Vincent.
I think I'll share a bit the same points. The choice we've made in the Ledger Vault platform is to make it as simple as possible. So you choose your partner, staking partner, you choose your amount, and then you go through the governance flow. We've internalized a lot of the staking logic to craft the transactions, so that is extremely simple. Because we know that when someone in treasury has to do a lot of transactions during the day, they're not going to be attentive all the time. So giving them an SDK for them to craft the transaction and then hope to copy paste correctly to a staking platform, to the wallet platform, that is not enough. So we really wanted to make it really foolproof. And then when it comes to automation, basically with this kind of platform SaaS that I think we all have, is things that you offer for your GUI, you can offer them via your API. Of course, there is some responsibility if you integrate that in turn in your own platform to integrate if you want the full life cycle. Depends on what you want to automate. If you want to automate allocation in staking, like you have 50% of your assets staked at any time, you need to be able to keep track of the stake balance and on the total balance and do that. But that's very straightforward, I would say, in terms of initiating those stakes. When it comes to withdrawals, you have to navigate the constraints, which are not the constraints of the providers, nor the wallet, nor the staking provider, but constraints of the chains. And that you need to think about. You need to think about when you need that money. Are you ready to give up the rewards if you need them in a hurry? Or the redemption conditions of your fund. So you need to think about all of that.
Yep. Joaquin, if you want to say anything about it.
Super quick. These two gentlemen work for software providers. Okay, so their software problem, I think it has been resolved. One of the reasons why it has been very well resolved and will continue improving is because there are great staking providers already adapted to our products and vice versa. So that's a key component to it. Of course, it depends on the level and experience of your technical engineering team. But I think from a technical perspective, the bridge and the problem has been solved. Another thing is if we talk again about fiduciary custody, okay? The word fiduciary means bankruptcy remote. If we talk about that component, that's where it becomes complicated. What happens if, while I'm staking funds through this bankruptcy remote, legally protected custody service, there is a bankruptcy of my service provider? What do I do with those rewards? How are they accounted? Right? Who is the creditor? Who is not the creditor? Who do I have to sue? Okay, those are all boring questions that still a big part of the industry has not resolved. We do it at Bitgo. We are the only ones offering fiduciary regulated bankruptcy remote custody and staking at the same time. And it has been 2.5 years work, I would say, which is a long, long time and a lot of money spent, right? So it really depends if we're talking about software only or legal compliance and software.
Okay, interesting. And I tend to disagree with you, I have to say.
As probably 95% of the room, right?
No, I mean, in the sense that we see staking and DeFi as like more transparent, secure yields. That's what's happening in traditional finance. Even if nowadays we have good interest rates, staking could be often higher than this interest rate, and there's still a lot technically to be done for a lot of institutions, TradFi, and also retail, millions and billions of people to access staking and DeFi. It's data, it's on-chain flow of staking or just interacting with DeFi. It's liquidity also of the stake. Is it at the liquid staking token level, or is it at the validator level for institutions, NFT for validators? It's again, the reporting aspect of it. Most of these kind of indexers, either at the consensus layer or the execution layer, hasn't been built yet, and it's kind of a very hard technical requirements to do. And I agree, of course, on that sense that still explaining to regulators, having regulation standards for staking in DeFi, and explaining why it's different to do it in a custodial way or non-custodial way, in a transparent way or not, compared to CeFi, I think is key. Maybe just last question, and it's kind of two questions in one, but Johann, I would love to get your take on what's happening with the Shanghai upgrades on the Ethereum blockchain. How do you see that improving or just making the staking environment evolving? That's one. And how do you see staking, institutional staking in 5 years?
So a really interesting trend we've observed over the last, I'd say, 3 to 6 months has been this inversion from liquid staking to 32 ETH staking. And very much driven by this upgrade that you're mentioning now, the Shanghai upgrade, which obviously is making withdrawals possible within ETH2 staking. Obviously, you both have the Shanghai as well as the Capella upgrade. Capella's on the consensus layer, Shanghai is on the execution layer. And I think what that creates is an environment where the rewards profile for institutions is far clearer. So you know not only obviously the rewards rate that you're going to be generating, and you can obviously work that out by the number of validators in the network, but you have an idea of sort of what your exit profile looks like. And that is fundamental for institutions to understand, like, what does that reward profile look like, and how to think about sort of the trade-off they need to make in running their organization. I think maybe sort of just the interesting thing I want to plant to see it as that we tend to think in the institutional world and in terms of asset allocation and yields, and it's understandable, we all come from that world. The one thing I sort of want to introduce into this room is that the way we think about it is that we have the birth of a new internet. It's an internet that is being built that is empowering the individual and the organization. It is doing so through digital authority, and it is inevitable. Like, we are going to all transact, create, store, transfer value in this new internet. And the way to validate this internet is through staking. And so we've seen an explosion of interest from the institutions we engage with, not just starting with liquid staking, but then also moving to now 32 ETH staking. So I think we'll continue to see an increasing trend in staking, and more organizations want to be part of validating the world's computer.
That's exciting. Joaquin, do you want to add anything about like Shanghai or your vision of like staking in the next 5 years?
Regulation?
No, I know it's a boring topic, but I'm pretty sure that either we get over that or we might not be here in 10 years, unfortunately. So definitely Shanghai de-risks the entire way institutions look at this, especially, at least from our experience, the ones that face retail, because they don't, it's not the same handling your own treasury and taking that risk by yourself than really having to respond against thousands of clients, right? So that is definitely an advantage. It's definitely seen as a very good thing happening. In terms of what will happen in 5 years, I think liquid staking and that path will be the key. Right?
I agree. Liquid staking is the key. Vincent.
Yeah, nothing much to add. I just want to go back on what Johann said, and we spoke a lot about kind of interest rate with staking, but I really like the position of ConsenSys that staking is a data validation infrastructure. So I would more stick to that one rather than trying to present it as a financial product, which I don't think it is. So I just wanted to highlight that one because we have a bit spoken with financial terms, and I don't think that's the direction of staking.
I agree. That's why we're using the word rewards. very cautiously. Obviously, the Shanghai upgrade will lead to additional liquidity, additional security. I think, if I read your report correctly, only around 15% of total ETH is being staked. And now that you have visibility on rewards and the ability to collect, stake, unstake, I think this can definitely lead to a broader adoption, which I think is quite critical for a broader mass market adoption, especially if we are to consider Ethereum as a settlement layer for smart contracts. This will definitely help a broader market adoption.
Cool. And just side note, it's like not a financial advice, but what Alexandre is mentioning is that we published reports explaining how Shanghai will impact institutions and somehow retails to stake, when they will be able to unstake the assets and when there will be liquidity on the Ethereum network. Charlie.
Well, just to sum up and say one last thing, the biggest challenge for the coming years is definitely to avoid securitization of staking, meaning making it a full financial product. Even though we all agree it's not a financial product, if we want to offer it to institution, one of the solutions is to make it a security. To build a financial product on top of it and offer the yield. And I think that would be not the biggest mistake we can make, but if it's the only way we find to tackle the regulation challenge that Joaquin have been talking about, I think that would be a mistake, because we've seen it with spot markets. Grayscale, for instance, they securitized Bitcoin. The Grayscale trade happened. 3 Arrows Capital took it, etc. If we made it with staking, I think we are not taking the right path to offer it to institutions, and I think we can find another way of making them go into that, taking that road and investing it in a different way that they have been investing assets over the past centuries. And so it's now that we need to take the right path, and securitization and making all financial products in line with regulation is not necessarily the way we will manage to make it like an ecosystem in 5 years. So that's my last piece of advice, if I may.
So build first and wait for regulators second.
Exactly.
Think about it. So before we open questions to the audience, maybe we should give a big round of applause to So do you have any questions here? Yeah.
The question for Joaquin. Basically, you spoke about.
Wait, one second.
Oh, okay, sorry. I had a question about, you spoke about the institutionalization of the industry and institutional money coming in and the fact that we have to bridge that gap. How much do you think, because we saw it during last year when there was demand by clients from like BlackRock was starting to offer it to clients or having part of the portfolio, etc. How much do you think FTX has pushed back the trust of institutions in this aspect, especially the staking part and the industry as a whole? How long do you think that'll take to recover? And also, do you think instead of regulation coming first and through that getting there, do you think it's also a demand from end clients who will push the institutions to get there? So people, as the industry grows, will be like, we want crypto exposure. Can you have funds that have that in place? And therefore they don't have a choice but to push it to that extent.
I'll respond to your second question first, if you don't mind. Definitely is going to be, in our opinion, from down to up. Like the final clients pushing aggressively for their service providers, i.e. institutions, and therefore their regulators or central banks, etc., to make it possible. So of course, it's all pushing down to up, and building the demand and having the demand is absolutely the key to change things, right? Maybe I was misunderstood before and I didn't explain myself well enough, but I'm definitely pro that vision. And your first question was about FTX. I think it has been the largest disaster after Mt. Gox for sure, and it has. I don't know if I have to give you like a number in terms of months or years of stepping back. I would say 3 years, which is a long time. I've been in the industry for 8, I think, and 3 years, it's a big percentage of that time. Yes, at least what we've seen with clients that were very, very close to launching either very sophisticated products or more simple buy, sell, hold products have either changed their strategy in terms of how to do it or literally pushed the brake and told us like, look, thank you for everything, but this is not the moment, right? So yeah, I think it has been an absolute disaster. By the way, it wouldn't have happened at a 90% assurance if FTX had a fiduciary custodian backing up the digital assets, as it happened with LedgerX, their US arm, and other places like Japan. All those funds are there and are being given to their creditors as we speak.
And maybe just on that topic, so the FTX, we have a slightly different perspective on that actually. We think FTX, right? What happened when FTX happened is like obviously the largest creditor of the FTX is Genesis, and as Charlie mentioned, in centralized lending, when in an immature market where you have a huge risk of counterparty, and in the case of Genesis, that was by far the largest lender in the market, you could see from the FTX event that centralized lending would be risky. It's highly centralized. A lot of exchanges were using or offering earned products, yields, and the reason they wouldn't integrate staking at first and just take a call with Genesis and overnight they were live, right? It was really easy to integrate. Is mainly because of integration. Staking was complex to integrate, and if they wanted to offer 5 or 6% on any of these stakeable assets, they would go to Genesis. So after this event, we've seen like a massive demand of institutions saying, okay, now we understand the only yield in the market that is transparent, that is open, where your counterparty is not Genesis, is not effective altruist taking pills and not sleeping, is actually the Ethereum protocol, or it's the Polkadot protocol, or it's the Solana protocol. We've seen a lot of business coming from that. Oh, sorry, after this answer.
Pills part was one.
Yeah, the polls killed it.
And don't take pills. Not an advice. Any other questions?
Okay, so obviously it's not a silly question, but I was wondering because we talked about all the friction for staking. So we talked about like institution with regulation. We talked about UX. But I was wondering about like the tokenomic, especially for Ethereum, for example. So in my understanding, the rewards from staking, they are not correlated to the number of people who are staking. It's like even inversely correlated. So isn't there like a friction for institutions to come in if the Ethereum market doesn't scale with them, or does institutions coming into staking going to bring like more adoption of Ethereum? Like how do you see this play out?
Well, for myself, just on Ethereum, I don't see. I think what we see on Ethereum is they are achieving their roadmap at the moment. They're displaying that they can make it progress with the bigger group of stakeholders. So staking is only one part of that. And I believe that, okay, there will be more staking, but there will be more demand for Ethereum with also all the good development that we see on L2s. So the percentage will be staked might probably converge toward something between 50 and 80%. But when people will enter, they will not enter at the price of 1,800. The price will progressively go higher, and the absolute amount in institutional will be big, but the percentage of amount will not be that big. So really, for me, the staking is only one part of the equation of Ethereum, which is about the network is evolving still.
I have one question for Johann. Do you see any risk associated to Rocket Pool and Lido owning 80% of the validation, like liquid staking at the moment? And if yes, which are the ways to get rid of that concentration in the market?
I think decentralization is a path that we are all on and we're working towards. You know, you start with scalability, latency, and then you find product market fit, and then you decentralize. And I think most products kind of have that vision at its core. If you look below Lido and Rocket Pool, actually Lido is probably a better example. You actually find a lot of decentralization. They're very thoughtful about the number of validator operators that make up Lido, and there's constant movement towards decentralizing the number of validators and also kind of how validators onboard up to Lido. There's also a range of innovation kicking off in the ecosystem. So distributed validator technology, eigenlayer is sort of the hot topic right now. More and more innovation is coming to the space that's going to make staking easier, simpler, faster, more distributed. I don't think it's a risk today, and I certainly don't think it's going to be a risk in 5 years from now.
Any other questions? Amazing. Please, a big round of applause.